I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Brian Wilson.
Joining us now on the line is James Rosen, Fox News chief Washington correspondent. He's author of a book called The Strong Man, which, by the way, is a very good book. And when you're done, it's so big you can use it as a doorstop. I'm telling you, that's a monster book there. Hello, James. Good morning to you.
Man, you know how to sell.
Well, listen, it has two purposes. You learn something, you keep your door open. What a deal. Hey, listen, you have the unenviable task of trying to figure out what's going on down at the State Department over there at Fox News. And John Kerry and it seems and Bibi Netanyahu not getting along famously these days. I mean, Kerry came up with this ceasefire proposal, which was quickly and summarily rejected by the Israelis. And apparently Kerry, who has been called a few names, says he's not worried about all that. But then there's a report that he called Netanyahu a stubborn head who refuses to understand anything. So what's going on between BB and Kerry in the midst of this conflict?
Brian and Larry, good morning. Perhaps not as much as meets the eye. I've spoken to some Israeli officials and asked about whether there's really some big beef between them and John Kerry, and they tell me not really. They say that the United States understands perfectly the aims of the Israeli Defense Force in the current Gaza operation, and also its determination, in essence, that the Israelis are not going to stop on this operation, whether it's before, during, or after a ceasefire, if it would leave them short of their goal, which is truly destroying what they described to me as a kind of underground metro system beneath Gaza. You know, we keep hearing about tunnels, but that might give you the wrong idea about what's really lying underneath this kind of infrastructure, this terrorist infrastructure. It's really more akin to an enormous underground system, and they likened it to me to the metro system.
Wow.
And they know that the United States is going to understands perfectly, as victims of terror ourselves, why they would want to take that completist approach to the mission.
Based on your reporting there, James Rosen, it seems to me that have you been able to glean from people at the State Department that they also recognize that as at the same time Hamas and the people in Gaza and the Palestinian Authority complain that they are economically in terrible straits and they need our aid because of their tough situation, that there's kind of a dichotomy there when you look at all of the money Hamas has been spending on this network of tunnels and all of those rockets. If they really need our aid, why are they using their money then for all of these nefarious purposes?
Well, I guess distinctions should be made, Larry, between the populace of Gaza and what counts for the leadership of Gaza. Remember that Hamas took over Gaza in elections. I think it was about 2006, 2007. I think it was 2007. And there is a political wing to Hamas, but it was true even before this conflict that Gaza was in desperate straits, both financially and infrastructurally. And now, given what's happened over the course of the last 3 weeks, Gaza is truly one of the most miserable places on earth. The estimates of what reconstruction would require financially, just as of 10 days ago, was exceeding $800 million, which is about the annual budget for Gaza. So after this is all over, just to prevent outbreaks of disease and establish basic functions and clearing the rubble, it's going to be a massive project.
All right, so it doesn't look like this is going to wind down anytime soon. The Israeli military is calling up 16,000 additional reservists. That brings the total number to 86,000. They have gone to the United States and requested more ammunition. Look, a couple of questions. You know, how long is this thing going to go? And secondly, with this request for ammunition, is that something the United States will look favorably upon?
Well, first we should point out that where the 16,000 new reservists being called up is concerned, my understanding is that that exact figure is to replace 16,000 troops who are rotating out. So it won't represent an overall increase in troop strength. But where the request for U.S. assistance in terms of hardware and ammunition is concerned, my understanding is that the United States has already, in fact, granted that. And as to the question of how long this will last, the latest quotes from senior Israeli military officials tell us that all they need is, quote, but a few days. Of course, we heard that in the early going as well. Israel knows that when you conduct a war with an organization like Hamas, you're going to see extraordinary civilian death tolls, larger perhaps than in ordinary conflicts, because this, after all, amounts to a kind of asymmetric conflict. and we know Hamas's tactics about where they hide weaponry and installations near schools, near mosques, and so forth. But Israel also knows that every day this thing goes on, and every day you see another 17 civilians or children killed in some errant attack. It damages Israel's standing in the world and makes it harder for it to operate diplomatically. So I wouldn't expect it to go on longer than another few weeks at most, Brian.
James Rosen, you heard Brian Wilson mention your great book, The Strong Man, John Mitchell and the Secrets of Watergate.
You mean the doorstop
No,
for me recently?
Yes, that would be the one. I think it is fair to say, based on your research, the extensive research that you did on that book, you are an expert on the Watergate era and the Nixon presidency.
Absolutely he is, yeah.
And knowing that, I mean, listen, this town is using the word impeachment more in the last 10 days than I think they probably did since Nixon. I wonder, based on your research and knowing that era, would Richard Nixon or the Republican Party have ever, done fundraisers off of the idea of impeachment, reached out to Republicans saying they're trying to impeach Nixon, give us money? We just had, by the way, we just had Lanny Davis, Democrat, a good Democrat, who goes back to the
special
Clinton
counsel
days.
to President Clinton during the impeachment crisis.
And right here on the air, he said, I have no problem with this lawsuit that John Boehner is bringing. I think that this is a healthy thing. It's a good thing to discuss the separation of powers. Are there other Democrats who are starting to feel a little queasy about the exploitation of this talk about impeachment and raising money off of it?
Probably not. If they are, probably only because it's run its course and it's time to move on to a new fundraising cycle. I kind of envisioned when I learned that the Democrats are fundraising off of this kind of talk, and of course I had the same thought as you. Would that have happened in the Watergate era? Would they have looked abhorrently on that? I had a vision of today's aged Nixon administration veterans saying to themselves, damn, we should have done that. Why didn't we think of it?
Right. Pat Buchanan doing the V8 thing. Why didn't I think of that?
I would say simply about the impeachment discourse that we're engaged in right now that it may be a bit more pronounced than in other recent times since Watergate, but I think that every modern presidency since Watergate has faced impeachment talk in some form or fashion, with, of course, President Clinton actually being impeached.
Right, I may have been guilty of hyperbole there.
Modern politics, and if you think back to the early '60s. You found those posters, those billboards saying "Impeach Earl Warren" when he was Supreme Court Chief Justice. It just is. It's a kind of it's an extremity of discourse, and it seems pervasive in our modern politics, regrettably.
Yeah, obviously we did talk about impeachment a lot during the Clinton era. So
even at the end of Bush-Cheney, you'll recall there were some muted calls. I remember asking Hillary Clinton about it in a off-the-record setting, which is why I won't divulge her answer. But when she first became Secretary of State in 2009, there was talk of whether there should be some kind of truth inquest or prosecution of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney.
Yeah.
Preposterous talk, as you see, because it went nowhere.
Yeah. All right, so before we leave you, we just have to ask you this basic question.
Very important.
Very important question. Did you see Sharknado 2?
Well, I, in fact, served Brian as a technical consultant on Sharknado 2.
Really? That explains a lot, James.
I know nothing about sharks, but I am an expert not only in Watergate, but in NATO.
The NATO part. Well done there.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, James.
Thanks, James.
Don't give up your day job. Hey, listen, appreciate it, James.